the importance of writing, publishing, reading, applying in a clinical practice, going back, republishing, rewriting, recommunicating with the writer, and evolving a science based on a scientific and evidence-based science, so that we gradually move to the first choice of the treatment. And for that, we need to publish, read, get into the feedback mechanisms, so that all of us grow and help science to grow. So Dr. Nikunj Jani, our reader in Department of Repertory and our editor of our JISH, he has a lot of these experiences of being, used from whatever extensive reading he does of lot of these journals, not from the time when he has started publishing JISH, but from the beginning. He has used this journal as a stepping stone in solving a lot of difficult cases, and also that has helped him in integrating and incorporating basic facts in JISH. So I would request Dr. Nikunj to share his journey of reading these quality journals, the articles, and how it has helped him in grow as a clinician, as a teacher, and as an educationist. So thank you, Dr. Nikunj, for taking this interesting and difficult subject. And probably it will motivate us to read, and go into the cycle of giving feedback, publishing, reviewing, reading. So you can now take us to your journey of this journal reading and evolution as a clinician.
Thank you, Bipin sir. I think thank you very much. And I think what I will be today sharing is a journey which most of us as homeopaths or as practitioners undertake. My journey might be limited, the amount of years, but I think many more will have more experiences as we go along. What are the objectives which we are going to attain in this session? We are going to look at importance of reading homeopathic journals to enhance clinical practice. We are also going to look into the rich heritage which homeopaths have, a legacy which we are inheriting from the masters, understanding the current reading trends of homeopaths, and also we will try and see what are the changing needs of the science and profession, and observe the changing trends in publication, especially in homeopathy. So how does a published article help a clinician? I think I will probably share a journey of how I undertook when I started my practice after completing, you finished your UG, probably joined ICR, after that joined MD, finished MD, and a practitioner, when you start, how does an article, or how do I see journal as in my journey as a clinician? Start with early experiences. Heel pains, most of us encounter this. We have seen it time and often. Most of us have seen this in our practice. We have seen the role of homeopathy helping these complaints. I had seen it in the background. The rheumatology posting helped me, especially when I was dealing in post-graduation. It helped me to, we know that homeopathy is going to help in these conditions. But at times you are in a position that you know the strategies also, that constitutional medicine, indicated medicine, if there is an acute, there are a set of medicines which we use. We know pulsatilla helps, ruta, rustox, that's what the Matramedica and the repertory gives. We are able to do. And at times when we are leading with plantar fasciitis, more into actively, there is obviously supports which we give in terms of the heel pads which patients use, and still patients are not better. Now, I did encounter a lot of these, in spite of doing the right things, why are they not better? We try use different forces, like what we saw in Dr. Nilesh's presentation, where he uses acute, where he uses indicated chronic, indicated medicine, and then a constitutional medicine. So one dives into reading. And Dr. Kopikar's book of 70 years of clinical practice, that's where he mentions the indication of using very frequently Hikla lava and aurum met as a remedy, because he operates on the concept of exostosis, and he also sees the spur in the heel also a form of exostosis where he sees Hekla lava, and he also shares that aurum met has reduced, in fact, even dissolves. As we know, the power of aurum met. Now, when I was doing this, there was an article, Homeopathy Clinical Case Recorder is a journal which was published. Now, the publication has been stopped. Dr. D. Mistry from Solapur was a surgeon. He would publish this journal, and probably one of the, as an editor, if I have to see and look up to, he is probably an industrious editor. And you will see, when if you are fortunate enough to go through the journal of Homeopathic case clinical case recorder, you will see the kind of scholarship which the editor does. He reviews all the journals which are published. He prepares a summary and he puts his synopsis in every issue. And mind you, that is no mean task. And he does that, and he did that for a long period of time. And in that, I found an article by Dr. Suman Mishra, SC Mishra from Jabalpur, where he published that zincum met is one specific remedy where he has used it in his practice entirely. Now, he did it after doing a conclusion of the repertorial study. He selected, he says, when you take up Kent's repertory, go to the extremities chapter, select all the rubrics of heel pain, and there you get zincum, which comes up as nearly the remedy which he uses in his practice. Now, I had no experience of using zincum. Now, as a student of repertory, I wanted to verify what he was saying in his article. So I did the job of picking up all the symptoms. I put them into the repertorization, and I really found out that zincum does come up as one of the top 3 remedies, which is never thought by us. I had never thought. I only knew zincum for the specific role. We know zincum has an affinity for certain areas, but zincum in heel pain. And then I took up the study. When you look at source books, Herring has listed a list of symptoms in heel pain, especially heel and extremities of zincum. Same is even done by Clark. And the repertory, when you do it for yourself, also validates the claim of the author. And the cases where I was not able to give result, I used zincum there, and zincum brought in the results which were needed, which was not available through the other remedies which I had tried earlier. Now, this, when you do this, as I was just a young practitioner who had just started practice, and I felt it was my duty to inform the author that I had undertaken this process, and I should be thankful to him that his article allowed me to solve certain cases which were not being done by me. And unfortunately, there was no email mentioned of the author in the article, only there was his postal address. So I wrote him a letter and I posted it to him. And to my surprise, mentioning my email and mobile number, so that if, just in case he wanted to get in touch and I forgot about it. And to my surprise, after probably a span of time, there was a parcel which arrived in my clinic with the address which I had given. And it contained the author's 3 books which he had written. And also a letter stating that he was very happy that somebody had read it, and somebody comes back telling that the article has been useful. And he also shared his email that time, that which I requested him to do so. And I was not expecting. I was a novice. I had just started practice. I had no name at all. And you send an author. The author is gracious enough to send you his published books, and he tells, read them and see if you are able to learn something from this as well. And it was a gesture which really touched me. I continued the correspondence with the author, especially if some of my articles would get published, especially in Vital Informer. I would get a message or an email from him, read your article, keep doing the good work, a short email, and pleasantries would be exchanged. Till his death in 2018, the correspondence continued. It was not a regular correspondence, but especially when the article of mine got published, he would make a point to just drop in an email and just say, continue the good work. Now, this, for a young clinician who's just starting his practice, is very, very encouraging. And the journal allowed me to establish professional relationships that we value each other and we can learn from each other, from peer learning. And this was something which went a long way in as I progressed in my career as a clinician. So this may be a small case where, an X remedy was used, but I think it started off how a journal helps you to understand and opens up newer avenues of learning when one does that. Again, earlier experiences of psoriasis. Of course, Palgar has a brilliant skin OPD, and we had a well-established department where we saw variety of cases of skin when we were doing our postgraduate training. I started my practice, and when you start encountering psoriasis, and you see that this condition is coming to you quite often, and when one needs is a refresher course, one needs to understand. We have seen cases as students, as postgraduate trainees, but when I want it in a nutshell, where do I refer to? I think what Sir Vipin sir also raised a point in Chirag's presentation was that we need books which are written from our perspectives, where we are able to see all the areas of clinical practice in one nutshell. And I think IJHM needs no introduction. It was edited by illustrious Dr. Praful Barwalia sir, and probably the kind of scholarship which sir has, the journal inculcated all the values which a good journal should have. And I think probably one of the best my favorite journal covers or the jacket has been IJHM, because you see the banyan tree, the Tagore saying, I think it's beautiful. And what this issue of psoriasis did was, it has got a variety of cases. You have Dr. C.B. Jain sir's cases there. You have NVM and Momtona sir talking about psoriatic arthropathy. You have variety of cases which cover all the areas which a practicing clinician should refer to when it comes to psoriasis. And these are my early experiences. Of course, as we grew up in practice, we were able to see more dissertations, we were able to see more articles in peer-reviewed journals. But this journal became a starting point for one to actually have a short refresher course for a condition. It gave you experiences of brilliant clinicians who have been able to make a lot of change in their practice. It gave you pointers of how one should go about, and it allowed one to actually take an overview and apply it in their practice. And of course, it helped a young clinician to grow also in its own practice. So this was another issue which, when it comes to reading, and I think this helped to develop certain insights into one clinical condition. Again, alopecia. Now, I've seen, as I said, skin OPD was very much a very well established OPD in RHH Palghar. And when one sees a lot of cases of alopecia, when alopecia first came to me in practice in the clinic, the questions were, what potency to be used? What would be the repetition? Because it may look simple, but you are essentially managing an autoimmune disorder. And again, homeopathic clinical case recorder, I came across a case report by Dr. S.K. Mamgain from Dehradun. And if people have read Dr. Mamgain's cases, he is a brilliant prescriber when it comes to a lot of pathologically advanced cases. Illustrious author, he has got a lot of cases which are published in various journals. And when one reads his cases, you are able to see the grasp of gross pathology and the manner in which homeopathy helps in these kind of conditions, which at times we are not aware of it. And he talks of a small case report wherein he has used Ustiligo as a remedy to treat alopecia in a young male. Of course, Ustiligo was prescribed on the indication of that case. But what he talked and what struck me was the manner in which he discussed the posology. He said he has not used frequent repetitions, and infrequent repetitions of maybe a potency 30 and then not even repeating it and going to the next potency has helped him get the desired results in his practice. And you read, and I remember my teacher in undergraduate days, he said homeopathic student must attend seminars or read. He may not apply it in his practice right away, but one keeps and notes it down, and one refers to them as and when you grow and whenever you need these kind of concepts to come. And the opportunity came up when one of our published cases, I think Dr. Anup sir and my case was published in NJH and of alopecia, and that was seen by another homeopathic physician. And the homeopathic physician was staying outside Maharashtra, and they referred their cousin who was staying in Mumbai to me, that look, this person has got this, why not you go and consult this person? And probably that opened the Pandora's box. And then one led to another. And I think I have most of the cases which are published, at least personally, I have around 6 to 7 cases published in various journals on alopecia areata, and many more which are there in practice. When I found this was one area where I was started getting associated with in my early years of practice, that if you have alopecia, the word went, you should go to and consult him. And one gets on to create his own body of knowledge. And I think the reporting or the finding which was there in the journal is what I also experienced in my own practice, and in the cases that one doesn't need to repeat frequently in alopecia. Infrequent repetition, at times very minimum, and most of the cases there is hardly a repetition of only 2 or 3 doses. And how Dr. Nilesh has shared the timeline of the response comes in a very short duration. Similar, the constitutional medicine, I have not seen the role of specific indications except in COVID, where post-COVID people had hair fall, and that is the time when constitution did not help. And but it was not alopecia; it was more likely an hair fall, and that is the time I have ever used an acute or indicated medicine. Otherwise, constitution does the job, and the duration is very short. You are able to see the growth in a very short span of time. It starts with a case report which one reads, insights into a clinician's mind. You apply those insights in your own practice with the knowledges which you have acquired in your own training, and you are able to create your own body of knowledge, which in turn helps others also to learn from you, and you keep learning from your own experiences. I think this experience or one journal article took me into a journey, and probably it helped me to write and get established as an author. I had clinical cases to share with the world where I could demonstrate evidence-based clinical homeopathy, and it helped me to grow. So I think one article can, make a change to your thinking, and it can actually inculcate you, or it can promote you to write more and share with the profession more. So these were the early experiences which I acquired. And Parkinsonism, NJH has been around. Most of us have written for NJH, and it has been our learning ground as well. This issue of NJH is one of my favorites, because this issue encompasses everything what a practitioner needs for understand Parkinsonism. Suddenly there was, as you know, the clinician sits, you are able to see that some clinical conditions come to your practice, and then you start seeing you have experiences but not that great, and the law of nature that you are blessed with more and more cases of that same condition, and you need to deliver results. Experiences were there. I had a certain amount, I had seen certain cases, but it was a limited experience. What I needed was, how much is our role? What does homeopathy actually do in Parkinsonism? What is the potency scale which one uses? What will be the repetition? How much is good enough in cases of this? What is the reversibility? A lot of questions which a clinician encounters. I think Dr. Nilesh's presentation also did that. And, when we sit in our own clinics, and NLT sir always says is the internal observer. And internal observer is the one who compels you to ask questions. What is my role, and how much actually I can make a difference in this case? And this journal issue, NJH issue of Parkinsonism, was a kind of great help, because it has cases from all schools of homeopathy. We have grappled to treat Parkinsonism. Very detailed cases were there. One could also see cases where I think a specific mention which I would do is a case series by Dr. Dinesh Rao. And my dear sir, what he had done is he talks of 5 cases. He goes on to go into details of every case. What is and I think all areas of Parkinsonism are covered in those 5 cases, which a homeopathic clinician will probably encounter. That case series primed me up, and it really helped me to take up Parkinsonism as an entity, because one has an experiential learning, and then there is a learning which one acquires. And this issue was a kind of a learning which I acquired while reading those cases. Fortunately, one of our Malad Hospital experiences of Sunil Bhalinge sir, Kamlesh Jain and myself also was a part of this issue. And we were also able to share what learnings we did in Parkinsonism, and that also was included in this issue. So we could learn from others' experiences, because the case series by Vaidya sir gave an insight. There were many more articles in this issue, which also allow you to see what you can do to these conditions. and the journal helps you to develop you as a clinician, and you are able to give better results. You get more better clarity into what you can offer in such clinical cases as well. So what is the role of published article? And when a published article is the primary role of is writing a case report, is sharing evidence-based information for educational purposes, they have a significant academic value and can deliver learning objectives quite effectively. We have seen it in the previous two presentations also. And I'm sure when they are turned into case reports, one will be able to see a lot of learning from congenital hydrocele. JISH has one article, one case report which has been published of congenital hydrocele. One goes on to build a body of knowledge of these 5 case series will add more and contribute more to the body of knowledge for the profession. As I said, case reports, case series help education of medical students and practitioners. I shared the previous experiences. As a practitioner, I was definitely able to learn a lot from these case reports. And publishing clinical experiences, one helps readers to identify and deal with similar problems in their own practice. May not be similar, but there will be something which you will be able to take home and apply, which I talked about in the alopecia case, where I was able to take some lessons from the findings which were reported by the author in his own cases. So there is a definite role of published articles in medical training, and the world acknowledges that as well. Now, as I said earlier, homeopathy grew because of homeopathic journals. And I think homeopathic journals in the past have a significant role in the development and spread of homeopathy. And we have seen the rise of homeopathy can be attributed to the rise of journals as well. And there were a lot of cases and there was a lot of discussion which ensued after the cases were published. So what did the old journals contain? A lot of clinical experiences and case reports, new findings, new drug actions were reported. Conference proceedings, a lot of conference proceedings and meetings are there in the old journals. Homeopathic news, ads. Very interestingly, if somebody actually wants to really understand what are the kinds of ads which were there in those journals, they are really good. Those vintage ads and obituaries which they were carried. I think it is also safe to say homeopathy began from a journal. Dr. Hahnemann published it in Hoofland's journal, an essay of principles of ascertaining curative powers of the drugs. This is how homeopathy started, and this is how it was brought and communicated to the world. So a journal had a significant role in actually the growth of homeopathy. And then homeopathic journals, which we are able to see, the American Journal of Homeopathy was one of the significant, the Journal of American Institute of Homeopathy, which was another benchmarking which was done. And then Dr. Constantine Herring went on to edit the American Journal of Homeopathic Medicine, Mater Medica, which he was there, and he was the editor. The Hahnemannian Monthly had the illustrious Dr. Farrington as one of his editors. The Organon, they have a lot of journals. Adolf Lippi was one who contributed and established a lot of journals. So history of medicine gives us a lot of example of journals which were existing and they contributing to the homeopathic science. Dr. Kent was an illustrious editor. So Kent actually was a complete thing. He was a practitioner, he was a teacher, he was an author, he was the person who wrote philosophy, Mater Medica, repertory, and an illustrious editor also. So Kent went on to edit some of very well known journals of those times. The Homeopathician was one of them, which was published by the society. Lippi and Herring, H.C. Ellen were among the founding members. I think the single most important journal which actually contributed to the growth of homeopathy was the Homeopathic Recorder. We are fortunate to see the physical copies of Homeopathic Recorder. Palghar Library has nearly all the copies of physical copies of Homeopathic Recorder. They're kept in lock and key, and one can actually visit and read them. They're fragile, and it's a treasure. And I think the Bogart's collected works by Robert Banan, which we are now referring to, and which the world is now opening up to understand Bogart in detail, essentially were all collection of his writings published in Homeopathic Recorder. This went on to understand, helped a long way in understanding Bogart and his concepts, which we are now trying to understand and study in a more detailed manner. So journals did play a great role in propagation of homeopathic thought processes and concepts and helped in the growth of homeopathy. What we also know is that the previous generation or the masters read a lot. The journal survives because there are readers. And without the reader, there is no journal. Because if you don't read, the journal will stop. So do the current generation of homeopathic practitioners read journals? And I would say a yes. A cross-sectional survey which we carried out in 2019 gave a statistics of 93% of homeopathic practitioners felt that reading journals was very vital and important to keeping themselves and homeopathy active and alive. 93% is a huge number. It was a cross-sectional survey, and from all walks, people had participated in this survey. And majority of the homeopaths at least read one journal. And out of the multiple reasons why they read, these were the top 4 reasons: is enhancing the knowledge of homeopathy, enhancing clinical knowledge, research-based aptitude, and teaching learning processes which were seen. And most of them felt that they should read journals to keep them updated with the current trends in homeopathy as well. And most also have said they found difficulty in time to read more, but they did try to read one journal, or they did it in between infrequently. But this was the survey which the findings which came. What do the homeopathic practitioners actually want to read? The large number of the responses which came up was 91, or more than 90 people prefer to read clinical cases and case reports. Followed by a second large number is people are now wanting or opening up to read scientific research based articles. Traditionally, homeopathy has always been case reports, expressions through case and one finds clinical case reports and scientific based articles are the second most preferred. Of course, then there are the other set of articles which people like to read. And homeopathic, what this survey told us, that homeopathic physicians do like to read a lot of case reports. And then, as I said earlier, the case reports have helped the growth and the journey of a physician as well. And then as one grows ahead in this process, what are the newer forays which we are able to see? We started with, the institute started a plan of starting a geriatric medicine department for our RHH Palghar. And the task which my boss, Dr. Anup Nigwekar, did when we started the department was, we need to search for the existing body of knowledge which exists as of now on homeopathy and geriatrics. Of course, the task was huge, and we went about in that task, and we came across very limited data which is there. Talking of early 2016 and 17 when the department was being started, and what is that data which is available. So we went on seeking the data, and what upfront which came up as and served as starting points were these 2 journals. One, again, an issue of IJHM, which is talking of geriatrics, and I think Barwale's editorial in that lays and brings about all the issues which a homeopathic physician dealing in geriatrics will probably encounter. It covers all the aspects of it, and also there are certain case reports which are talking about it as well. So this becomes the initial starting point of this is what needs to be done. And then there was a homeopathic Diwali Ank which Dr. Vikrant Mahajan publishes from for Beacon Foundation, and it had a special issue on Vayovruddha in Marathi, which was on elderly and homeopathy, the elderly care and homeopathy. So these 2 became the starting points from which one goes on to develop knowledge. Of course, the department went on to subscribe to all the existing geriatric journals which are published in India, gerontology journals, and also seeking memberships in various societies of geriatrics, and establishing your own body of knowledge, and of course getting published. And a lot of papers now of geriatric department are in published in peer-reviewed journals of not just homeopathy but also of geriatrics and gerontology. But the starting point is the 2 journals which the profession has done. We get to learn from them. There are certain insights which we at an institutional level develop, and then we take it from there and start on to develop our own body of knowledge, which the people use it. Of course, the articles written by the department are now being cited by other people as well. The Google Scholar tells us that. So we are able to contribute to the body of knowledge in a much better way. But there is always the starting point, and these two journals did serve as the starting point when we went on to study a subject or establish a department at the early stages. Same as a teacher, you grow as a clinician in your own clinic, you start settling to some extent, and then there is, you are a teacher now. I joined, and there is certain repertories or the clinical repertories which don't use so often in our own clinical practices. I learned this repertory. We had elaborate sessions on this. We had taken up some cases also which we had worked on it. So I knew the plan, I knew the construction as a student of post-graduation in repertory. When I joined as a faculty, and that is a 1 year, department decided that we are going to take up regional repertories for dissertations this year. And Yingling's repertory was selected as one of the repertories where we would be using it in labor and induction of labor, and we will be applying this repertory. Now, the problem which the student came up with the department is what is the review of literature which the student builds its premise on to go on to study. Obviously, it was a prospective study, so student would work. We knew all the design was there, but how does one build a review upon and build your the whole logic on what are you going to do? And Vital Informer is a journal which is, I think most of us are aware of. It is well-read journal published from New Delhi. And Dr. Krishnamurthy from Chennai published one article in Vital Informer where he goes on to talk about the utility of Yingling repertory in his cases. I think he had shared 3-4 cases which was there, and where he demonstrated the role of Yingling's repertory in his own practice. That became the entry point for the student. The student was asked to correspond with the author, keeping the faculty members in the CC to the mail. The author was gracious enough to send his own personal cases. I think the author sent his own personal 5 more cases other than the journal cases. And he said any more help needed, he would be happy to help. The student went on to build on the review or the primary cases which the author had sent. And then student went on to apply them and do it. Of course, this is one of the department's finest works, where we are able to see the application of this repertory through well-documented prospective study. Homeopathy studied on partogram, the role of homeopathy in labor, induction of labor. It's a detailed study which is done. And when the student was able to come up with valid conclusions, the department head, Anup sir, decided to convey the findings to the author. He wrote a thanking mail to the author as the head of department of helping his student. And a kind of a unique private practitioner institutional relationship was developed. The author invited him whenever he is in Chennai to visit him. And now see, this is the need of the hour. Private practitioner, the institutes or the teaching institutions tend to at times disregard the value of the private practitioner who has the experience in clinics. And private practitioners are very happy giving and delivering results and promoting homeopathy, but their knowledge needs to go to the institutions where students are being trained. And this is a very unique way in which a private practitioner contributes to the development of educational student in an educational manner. The educational institute reports the findings duly back to the practitioner, thanking him for his help, and the profession grows. And I think it's a mutual respect and trust which helps the profession to grow in a much better way. New pregnants, these are case reports which help us to grow, apply it into a little bit of practice. And of course, with the evidence-based and homeopathy being looked upon as, a lot of times we are criticized for not being evidence-based. How do we, what are the newer needs and how our newer responses have to be? I had a case of the young anesthetist, probably a couple of years younger than me, visited on the insistence of his wife, who was a firm believer, for a case of rheumatoid arthritis for his mother. And he had doubts and concerns of his role regarding homeopathy. Now, what I was very sure I would be able to deliver in terms of rheumatoid arthritis, because one is the, you have established, you have seen a lot of experiences. I was blessed as an undergraduate student in CMP. I was privy to Dr. Mamtura and Dr. Nimish Mehta's rheumatology OPD. I had learned there. I come to ICR. I was, my supervisors, all of them had cases of rheumatological origin. So I learned from there. I go to Palghar, the huge rheumatology OPD which was there. I I had the fortune of having the posting of all my 3 years of residency. I had a rheumatology posting. And then when I joined as a faculty, I was given the clinical OPD to assist Dr. Kapse sir in rheumatology, and then which continues till date. So this was one area which I knew that I'd seen, I had years of experience to me, and I could deliver the results. But the thing is, how do you convince a child outside an harmless toy shop that he is going to get whatever he wants in that shop, but he has to come inside? Only if you step in, you will be able to deliver the goods. And the physician he came to meet himself because the wife insisted. Wife was a chartered accountant who was referred by his office colleagues, and she was better for her complaints. And he told very bluntly that, look, wife had functional complaints, you give results, I'm not too convinced. And he had a set of questions for me. What are you going to do with homeopathy? When are you going to stop NSAIDs which are going to be there? How well are the serological findings which are going to come up? What is homeopathy going to do? I had a lot of experience. We had symposiums where we had presented cases. We had certain case reports which we had published in journals. But his questions made me think that there is no research-based study which we had written. Case reports are fine. They are valid. We have seen that. But the Oxford criteria of evidence-based medicine again puts case reports in the lowest hierarchy of reporting findings. Of course, they are when it comes to academic publishing, they are considered in the lowest strata. For a practitioner, it is fine. But when I'm looking at the articles or in research, original articles have their own rules. Research-based articles are the most important. And you have a skeptic who's questioning you, and he was very valid to question. An article in IJRH, which is done, answers a lot of these questions. There are scales which are used, quality of life in RA, disease activity score, which is reduced with homeopathic medicines, the reduction in NSAIDs, which happens when homeopathy is started, when the indicated simillimum is started, you are able to do that. Serological findings reduced, and homeopathic medicines are able to do that. He was shared this. He said, I have done a lot of things. And if one actually goes to a Google Scholar of PubMed, one finds a lot of articles which remove the claim that homeopathy is just a placebo therapy and it does not have any effect in joint disorders. One can read, there are a lot of them. There is not much evidential based papers which are existing. This paper in IJRH was one of them. The son stepped into the store, the experience and homeopathy both were able to deliver the goods. The result was there, and the son became a little more anxious. And then probably the son opened up. That rather than doubting the system, he was more anxious that his mother should not be subjected to some kind of an experiment, which he didn't want to do. But then, finally, he also said he does now have, which I also agree to both the things which he said, is one should have more faith in homeopathy. Of course, yes, we should have faith in homeopathy, and one should listen to wife. I think all of us, all husbands will agree that one ought to be listening to wife. I think so. This is very important learning which is there. But on a given sense, this helps us to also build up a case wherein, and now we see, thanks to our research department at MLD, MHI, which they ask us to take better dissertations, they compel us to do more good work. We are now our dissertations now are moving from case series to more based on scales, wherein we are able to see a lot of scales being applied and more prospective and experimental studies are being done. So this is now going to help, and not only the postgraduate student, but also us as teachers to learn from our students' work as well. This is a contrasting scenario. Rheumatology is one where I had a lot of experience. Cancer, when I was confronted, I had limited experiences. I didn't have much of cancer. RHH is now starting a cancer OPD. So I know that the newer students will be exposed to the specialty area as well, and they will go on to develop their own experiences. But in my practice and also in my postgraduate training, I had limited experiences. So I was not very sure as a practitioner of how much I can offer to cancer. Of course, there is a lot written about homeopathy. Like how Dr. Nilesh said, there is a lot of rubrics which are there. There's a lot of materia medica which talks of. How much can I deliver? I'm not sure. How much do I interpret those investigations? I'm not aware of it. The newer investigations, how does one actually make sense out of? And another of this review article, which is published in IJRH, I think this article I had a certain case of cancer because one of our patients who was undergoing chemotherapy consulted us as a supportive while chemo was on. And what experience was that they had a support group of a yoga in our vicinity. And in that yoga group, they had a special subgroup of cancer. So along with being a yoga group, it also functioned as a support group. And they were close knit. All those people were cancer survivors, or they were going through chemo cycles, and they were close, and they were sharing and helping each other. And this lady felt that she was able to tolerate chemo much better compared to what she did when she had not taken homeopathy. So she recommended a lot. So the practitioner is suddenly lands up with a lot of cases of cancer from that closed group coming to you, and you are at sea of how much am I going to actually deliver in those cases. The journal article, and I think this journal is essentially a review article which reviews published papers in peer-reviewed journals from PubMed, Google Scholar, Wiley, Springer. So I think every article which this team of authors has reviewed is essentially validated because it is into the top peer review sites. It is not case reports. The author does mention that there are certain case reports which they have taken, but only those which are in peer-reviewed journals and not in other journals which are not peer-reviewed. The author goes on to talk of how homeopathy can help at the serological level, at the tissue levels, in breast cancers, in patients who are on chemotherapy, on radiotherapy. What are the homeopathic medicines which are there? And this is a data which is compiled and pulled from multiple sources and put into a nutshell. I think the 6 pages or the 5 pages of this article gives you a refresher course on how a homeopath should actually look at cancer. And not only does it do that, it has got 48 references. So I think the article itself gives you a lot of data. You want to read, you have got 48 references on which they have built their premise. You go on to read all of them. There are citations which are available. One cannot say, I don't have experience. You can learn from articles in a much better way. And this allowed me, in whatever limited experiences which I had of a clinical condition, to apply and then use it in my practice and derive my learnings out of those practice as well. Placebo. I think we are seeing a lot of placebo which is there, and homeopathy is always said that we are a placebo effect. You go to Twitter and we are rubbished by the modern sciences and even by lay people of lately that homeopathy is just a placebo science. And British Homeopathic Journal, now known as Homeopathy, is probably an impact factor journal in homeopathy. And this journal, the article of this, where it talks of in vitro studies which are being done. And these studies help to disprove the fact that homeopathy is not just a placebo, and it has a definite role which is there. A potency when changed will have an impact. So you will see a certain remedicine, certain potency will have different changes which are there in vitro. The detailed study has been done. Now, zincum is something which this presentation has made me think into. Zincum, I shared an experience of looking at the plantar fasciitis and heel pains. Zincum is in vitro studies of zincum, and in the forthcoming issue of GISH, we have zincum, a study from Jaipur, wherein the author, it's a research-based study where they have used zincum in studying various potencies of zincum and a placebo control of this water in agro-homeopathy, where okra plant has been used and homeopathic potencies of zincum have been applied there. I wish when the article, the issue will be coming out probably in the next month, please do read it, and you are able to remove the rubbishing the claim that it is just placebo because there is the human element is gone. Zincum, and you see the size differs, the kind of product, the growth is much better when homeopathy is introduced in plants. A lot of us have experiences. Bhavik was sharing a lot of his experiences of sprinkling plants, you know, while we were traveling back, where there is a lot of, you get these insects which come on plants. And he shared his experiences of using Staphylococcus aureus and on plants, and you know they just die off. The insects are not there. So I mean the experience. One of our students had studies which they had done where NPK we use as a fertilizer, and homeopathic fertilizer is much better. So you start learning from others' experiences also, and you know some notes which I made. I need to study zincum in a much better manner, in a more detail from peer-reviewed journals. Again, there are other articles which of putting in the old wine. Our masters have done. They have written theories and gone. But I think this article again in homeopathy talks of complex adaptive mix systems, which the modern world talks of CAS, and how when simillimum is introduced, what changes does it bring in the body? And it talks of what we have known in the modern terminology, in the language which the world is now understanding, and which we need to also imbibe in our own discussion and discourses, and talk in the language which the world wants us to talk. Homeopathy was a science which is way ahead of its time. We need to now put the old wine in a new bottle. Of course, the new bottle is always better. And as we all know, the old wine is always vintage and most expensive. So it is the onus lies on us surely to talk the language. And I think COVID, none of us can escape from it. And what is the role of homeopathy? The pandemic has been raging. We have seen 2 waves. Obviously, the 3rd wave is imminent. Most of us have prescribed in it. I had the experience of prescribing in mild cases, most of the times a little bit of moderate. Moderate to severe cases, I was not sure of what homeopathy does. How is the role of homeopathy and the questions? And I think this is the time where homeopathy, a lot of questions are being asked. The scientific discourse has taken, and there is a lot of importance of proving what you are doing in a scientific manner. We have been time and again told you have to do an RCT. What is the role of homeopathy? What are the strategies when, even if you're looking into an hospitalized case as an adjuvant therapy, what is the change which homeopathy is going to bring? And I think this paper, not because it is published in JISH, but I think this paper is one such paper which will set the tone for all the subsequent papers to come. Because one, it is conducted in a tertiary care modern medicine hospital. Number 2 is the findings are approved by ethical committee of not a homeopathic organization, but of a modern medicine setup. And the findings which were done have been validated by the statistician, which is not done by a homeopathic department or the institution, but by the statistic department of a modern medicine hospital. And it's an RCT. I think while writing the editorial for this issue, what I think the article has referred to a lot of studies which are already the work which has been done on COVID. A lot of good work has occurred and has been published in peer-reviewed journals. The article takes cognizance of all that. And I went on to see more if we are able to do. And probably what I got a feel, and I think it's a fact that this is probably one of the very few RCTs which have been published as of now in the public domain or in the knowledge world. There will be more, I'm sure, which will come up. And this paper goes on to tell a homeopathic physician is when homeopathy as a modality is introduced in COVID in severe, moderate to severe cases, what will be the days in which homeopathy will, how many days, the duration, the oxygen need, what all changes one can observe, what are the remedies which come up very often. I think the role of intercurrent is, this is the first paper which actually talks of the role of intercurrent. None of the published papers bring about that role also. Most of us have seen it. So this becomes a starting point for many of us to be more confident in tackling COVID. And probably in the newer waves, we will be better prepared to deal with it, this entity which we have no running from. If I conclude, what do I learn from this? Reading journals is utmost important. Reading is also often used for examining one's own practice. We may have done the best efforts, but we may fail. How does one look at those problems, reads it, learns from somebody's experience and applies it, and goes on to update one's own body of knowledge? For me, I see reading journals as a form of CME, continued medical education, because it's the easiest way, from the comforts of your own clinic, from your own houses, you are able to attend CMEs, read and apply. You don't need to go anywhere. I think a reading habit is something which one should inculcate. And peer review process, I think I talked about the later part of the presentation, talked of all the articles which IJRH, JISH, or the Homeopathy Journal are all peer reviewed. They follow a stringent process. I think the COVID article went through, the work was obviously the ethics committee of Dinanath Mangeshkar went through it. The article was revised. They went through an internal review. From there, it was when it was submitted into the journal, it went through a stringent peer review process wherein peer reviewers gave their comments. And then the article, when it comes to the reader, it is by far being seen through so many people who have some standing in the profession, that the reader gets the best from everyone. I think that's what the printed word has an impact power, and that is to deliver knowledge and to deliver in the best way and in the most scientific manner. So I think that is very, very important, which we learn from here. I think I will thank Kumar sir, Vipin sir, and Anup sir. I think these are three taskmasters who are helping. They spend sleepless nights because of our presentations. They work overtime, and I think they also give you sleepless nights when they come back with their own suggestions, and they want you also to make changes as they say. I thank all three of them for helping in this journey. Dr. Navneet Vachani, I think Navneet, over a period of time, for all of us in repertory department, Navneet is an alumni of repertory, and all of us in repertory, Navneet is what Mycroft is to Sherlock, or Sidhu Jatta is to Feluda. Navneet is our to-go man when we want data. And all one needs to do is, Navneet may be geographically located in one obscure corner of, one far corner of India in Junagadh. One needs to just send a mail to Navneet. Navneet will respond. How deep should I dig, and what is the timeline by which you want? And be rest assured that Navneet will dig across the world and get you the data. I think all the historical perspective which I have shared in this is shared by Navneet. So thank you, Navneet, and I think all of us in repertory department, he is our man to go. Keyur, I think Keyur will get hiccups in the entire ICR month, because the kind of way and the work which he has put in, the kind of professionalism which our work now reflects, is because of this man's effort. He sleeps, he works overtime. I think we are able to talk in the modern way and be presentable is because of Keyur. He takes, and what you see or the presentations which we are able to do is because Keyur has taken a dry run. He takes dress rehearsals, he times your presentation. He says this is not right, and the effort which he puts in, I think it's phenomenal. So thank you. And I thank all the editors, publishers of the journals which I have shared, the authors whose work which I have cited here, and of course many more which I was not able to do. Thank you so much. I will leave you with, I don't read too much of Hindi poetry, but one poet which I really like is Bhavani Prasad Mishra. And I leave you with these lines, something which I try to imbibe in every day. And I think writing is difficult. Not everyone is blessed, so it's difficult for us to write, but reading is easy. And I think we should read. And I think reading is not only confined to reading, that is the physical book. Today's world, reading is much more visual. I think at ICR, what is the best part is, ICR and MLD, MHI are updated with times. So if you want to read, the ICR gives you all the options. Reading, JISH is there. All the journals are there for you to physically read. Online read those journals, you can do that. Reading is also visual reading. So we have the segments of Fridays with Dhavle, or the FWD talks, which is known at. This is also essentially case reports. So somebody who can choose their medium. And there is another reading which nowadays, at least it appeals to me, is podcasts. So you can read through years also. And I think it's the most easiest, because while you're driving, in between patients, while you're traveling, and also even if you're preparing a cup of tea, all you need to do is just speakers and start reading. Keyur has already launched his first broadcast. MLD MHI has released the first podcast. Keyur has a long list of the few ones to come. So only thing left for us is now is reading. So I wish all of you happy reading. Thank you.
So thank you, Nikunj. It was a wonderful journey of reading.
I will request Nikunj. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
And I must confess, I am not a voracious reader. I just read need-based, but probably this will encourage me to read a little more. And the whole journey of yours is so insightful. And I'm happy that JISH has got an editor who knows all the facets of writing and reading. And I think the JISH will grow into one of the sought after journal with the quality control which you are keeping in your hand, and you will be able to take JISH to newer heights with the quality scientific evidence-based publications. And your journey and insight into the clinicians through reading has connected well all the facets of a clinician, educationist, and a researcher. So I hope that we will hear from you frequently about these journeys, so that it encourage most of us to read, and then write, and read, because that is another thing which we have to do, the writing.